So now we're going to finish off our back system by focusing on our hips area. Now, we consciously did not parent the lowest back control into the hips. And the reason why we didn't do that is that I want to be able to rotate my back independently, but also my hips. For instance, if I wanted to shift my hips up in a walk, I don't want my back to move with it. I want them to be independent. But I also sometimes want to drop my back and my hips down together. Like if I'm bending over to grab something, or if I'm squatting down, I want to drag both of those down. So how do I do this? What we're going to do is we're going to make another control that's going to act as a parent for both of these systems. So I should already have a circle down here, and I'm just going to duplicate this. But instead of just snapping this on top and having another circle on top of the cube, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this a little bit. I'm going to go into I'm going to keep my original one because my duplicate doesn't have history on it. I'm going to go into my history, and I'm going to increase my sections to 16. And this is going to give us a more fidelity on our curve. I'm now holding down right click and going into my control vertexes, and I'm going to select every other CV. Okay, and with that done, I'm just going to scale it out like that. And what I did is I created kind of like a little star shape. I'm going to go into object mode again. This will be very distinctive from the other controls. So now I'm just going to snap it up there. I'm going to hide my geometry, hold down V and snap it up. All three of these pivot points are going to be right on top of each other. Now I got a perfect scale on that, but you might want to adjust it around so it matches. So it's very easy to determine that there are three controls right here on top of each other. Okay, so let's bring my geometry back to make sure it looks good. It is getting a little bit cluttered. So if you wanted to bring it down or move your verts down, that's fine. You can manipulate your verts at any time, your CVs at any time on your control icons, because they're on the shape node. They're not affecting the actual transform. So once I clean this, you can still mess with the CVs. So I'm going to modify and freeze transforms. I'm also going to call this center COG icon for center of gravity, or COG. And there we go. Now what we're not going to do here is we're not going to constrain these to the other controls. If I say, hey, this control needs to influence my back. Well, if I say my driver and driven and then do my constraint here, we get our blue bars, and now said the animator, you can't animate this control. Yeah, it's a control there, but you can't animate it. And that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to delete that constraint. Okay. But we do want this control to influence our back control. So all I'm going to do is parent it right to the center of gravity. I'm just going to middle mouse drag it right onto control icon. So now when I rotate my cog, my back moves. I also want to make it move my hips. So I'm just going to move my hips right underneath my cog as well. Okay. So now if I move my hips, it moves separately. If I move my back, it moves separately. And if I move my cog, it moves both of them together. So I could translate them. I could also rotate them. And that's perfect. And when we start getting into the leg system, you'll start seeing that the legs will stay solid, and then the knees will buckle out and everything will drop down. So you can do squatting and all those type of controls. So that's setting up our center of gravity. And that's also giving a refresher on why we parent instead of parent constraining. And we're going to do that a lot more and saying what different tricks we can do when we decide we want to parent constraint things together compared to parenting. But I'm very, very picky on our language here. If you're connecting things by moving the hierarchy, you're parenting, that's fine. But if you're actually doing constraints, you got to say parent constraint when you're talking about that, because parent and parent constraint are very, very different entities.